Welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast, where we talk about the struggles and celebrations that leaders and entrepreneurs experience on their journey to success. I'm your host, Kristina, and I'm passionate about helping you achieve massive amounts of success at work and at home. We'll talk about all things people and organizational wellness, share relatable stories, and feature insightful guests because quality people and processes are at the heart of every success story. Ready to learn, grow, and have fun? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast. I'm your host, Kristina Schmitt. So we've all heard the sayings, actions speak louder than words. And maybe this one's a little bit lesser known, but maybe you've heard this one. Your actions are speaking so loudly that I can't hear what you're saying. What do these sayings have to do with anything? Typically, when I'm thinking about them, I'm thinking a lot more about authentic leadership and about how do we make sure that our actions match what we're saying. And that's very, very important. But I had some epiphanies this week, and I've just been thinking through a lot just with my own personal development, and then just connections kind of got made this week. So I really wanted to share this with you. But when we take this sort of thought process and we apply it to how we learn, that gives us like a whole bigger thought process, a bigger picture and really clarifying picture that we may not have thought of before. So as I mentioned, some personal development things I've been doing, some of it is just, working on healing certain things. Some of it is development of my skills, so coaching skills. And then some of it is kind of focusing on my parenting and how to get better. And I've mentioned Dr. Becky Kennedy before. Her philosophy of we are all good inside, and when we can start from there, we can be more empathetic. We can be more open to, seeing the beauty within somebody else and then helping them rather than reprimanding. So she has something that I think is just beautiful, but a lot of times, particularly with parenting, but also as I'll get into our workplace cultures as well, we have these cultures that are in place and they get passed from one generation to the next. And if we want to make a change, we need to break this cycle. So taking all of that in, I want to share some thoughts with you and to share some perspectives with you that might help you rethink how you're going to change your workplace culture, how you train, or how you help to develop your team, your family, yourself, and everything else. So what I just want to describe a couple of examples to kind of put this in your brain a little bit more, so to help you see it better. So we learn through our exposure and our experiences. So a lot of people will say that we learn our school of love from our family of origin, meaning we learn how to love and how to function in relationships through that family in which we grew up. So if we have where it's not safe to speak up, or it's not safe to have ideas, or it's not safe to say no, we are going to associate that with every relationship, personal relationships, work relationships. We're going to bring that into each and every one of those because that exposure and that environment is what taught us. So just even more simply, most of you know at this point that I'm Catholic, and my son is 8 and he made his first communion last year, and still I'm trying to get him to learn some of the things we say in Mass. And he's like, how do you learn them? And I'm like, great question, because I never, now actually I've gotten him a book that's got all the things in it, but I've never had a book that says this is what you say here, but you learn it through exposure. And even many prayers that we say, we've learned it from hearing others do it. And sometimes we learn the wrong words when we finally take it and we look at it again, but we learn all of this through exposure. So we're not sitting there working on memorizing it, but because we've said it so many times, we've heard it so many times, we've lived it so many times that it's so ingrained that when you hear something, you almost have this auto response want to come out of you, which can be good and bad, right? But that is how we're going to learn best, because we learn through these experiences. We learn from the environment in which we're placed. So just to illustrate this even further and get it more to a work level, lean implementation. So for those of you who don't know, lean is about taking the waste out of processes and making things run more smoothly, keeping it in the view of the customer so that you're making it in time, not having a ton of inventory, and doing it in ways that bring out the ideas of the team that's working on it. So a lot of the improvements are made by the people that are doing the work. And it really does, it stems a lot from a culture. And from that culture is where we get the improvements. So a lot of Western cultures struggle to get lean in place because they miss that culture piece. There's all kinds of learning out there. There's all kinds of training. There's consultants. I have been one. And we can teach the tools all day long. We can teach kind of the philosophy. And sometimes we can help with the culture piece, but when it is so wildly different from what's being around you, from the environment that it's in, then it doesn't fit and it doesn't work. And this is when we have, I think Patrick Adams says it, and I'm going to get the phrase wrong, but like a lean, like it looks like you're doing lean, but it's not really lean. So we get that kind of lean-ish. So we've ticked boxes, but we haven't really implemented it. So it might be clean and pretty, and we have 5S check sheets, and we have all these things that are in place. But the important part, and the part that really makes it effective, is a team member sees a problem and has the ability and authority to get it fixed within reason, right? Like they can say, hey, I've got this thing. It meets our budget. Let's just do it. Or there's an approval process they can do it through. But I mean, ultimately, it's about just getting it done, fixing it real time so that we just move forward with it. We don't make a bigger political deal out of it than it needs to be. But when you're coming from cultures where there is this like political amoeba, to try to teach people to think that I have the authority to fix this myself, I have the authority to make a difference in my area, it just doesn't fit. We can't make it fit, and we can't make people change because we've taught them to think this way. We've taught them that this is how you survive in this environment. And sometimes it goes all the way back to when the first day they started. It's like, hey, you got to go through this form and these processes and this people, and then we'll think about it for 4 months and then we might do it. Like it's a learned thing, whether it's through exposure or through actual physical training. We have learned to function in the opposite way that we're trying to teach them. I had the dots kind of all connect for me through a coaching program that I'm taking. My good friend Jenny Barkin is teaching, or she and Melanie have written a coaching program together, and so I'm taking it to kind of learn more about it. But just an epiphany came as we were talking about goal setting. So if you do one-on-one coaching, hopefully you are bringing in goals into that area, because that is where the rubber meets the road. Like, yes, big part is making sure they're okay. It's making sure that the team member is working and functioning well. It's about goal setting. It's not just about writing the goal down and saying, okay, did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? It's a back and forth. It's a conversation piece. And this is where this coaching part comes in. And so we were learning about the coaching piece, and Jenny just really highlighted that back and forth, that, I knew it, but sometimes you just have to hear things again to make your brain go, yes. And just that behavior of, you're not just going to go set goal and then go do it on your own, and I'm going to go and say, did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? No, you're going to come in with an idea, and we're going to explore it a little bit. We're going to talk through the reasons you want to get it done. We're going to talk through those headwinds you're going to face, whether they're external or internal, because a lot of times we're our own worst enemy with our goals. And we're going to really, really make sure it fits. And we're going to really make sure that we do it right. And we're going to adjust if we have to, but it's a back and forth conversation. And that's the beauty of having these one-on-one coaching sessions, that you've got pre-planned time that you're going to be able to do this. So it made me think of John Shook's book, Managing to Learn. And the whole premise of this, it's a very uniquely written book. So basically on one side of it is like the manager's script. And on the other side of it is like what the learner will do. So the team member will do. And it is a back and forth conversation for how these, they call them A3 plans. So they're an A3 or 11 by 17 document for those of us in North America, an A3 piece of paper that is problem solving, AKA goal setting. And they talk through, okay, what's the experiment you're going to do? Why do you think that's going to work? And there's set questions that they'll walk through, and they'll start to go back and forth on understanding the problem, peeling back the onion, and then, okay, coming up with some ideas of how you want to implement, the solution. Well, figuring out the root cause, then coming up with the idea of the solution. What it is it's back and forth one-on-one coaching, and it's coaching them through the problem. So what we're really doing there is we're teaching this learner, we're teaching them how to think. And that is how we indoctrinate them into our culture. And I'm sounding manipulative by saying indoctrinate and teaching people how to think. I want to talk about that. But when we talk about culture, when we have a workplace culture, when you have a family culture, being on the same page is critical. You need to be on the same page with the values that you have. These help you make decisions. You need to be on the same page with what you're working on, with what's important, with how you do things and how you solve problems and approach problems. We can bring people into these lean Kaizen events, and we can bring them into problem solving training and teach them these proper processes. But when we don't go all the way back to how they think and how they process, when you're faced with a stressful situation or even just a real-time situation where you're not kind of pulled out of the everyday and getting to focus on it properly, you're going to go to what you know. You go back to those learned behaviors, those learned programs that you learned as a child, that you learned in your early career, that you learned as being part of your family of origin, or that you learned as being part of whatever team you probably spent the most time on. So what does that do for us? What that does is it just continues on this culture that we've always had. It continues that way of thinking and that way of addressing problems, concerns, coming up with solutions and supporting goals or achieving goals or not achieving goals. It just carries it on. So what do we need to do? So if we want to make a change, so let me back up first. If we're happy with our culture today, if we are getting what we want, we've got people that are bought in, they love what they do, they are ready to solve problems and they're solving them well, and they're coming up with creative solutions and they're addressing problems as they come up and they're not trying to hide them. If we have a culture like that, then that sort of behavior is, this learning from your environment is exactly what we want. From my experiences, we don't all have that culture. We're feeling like, I just want something different. There's something that's not working the way I want it to. So most of us are not living in that culture at work or at home sometimes. So what we need to do is we need to, in the words of Becky Kennedy, Dr. Becky Kennedy, we need to break the cycle. And we need to break this cycle of toxic workplace environment. We need to break this cycle of jumping to solutions instead of understanding the problem. We need to break this cycle that we have taught ourselves and we've taught our team. So how do you do that? A lot of times people will bring in an expert, or they say, oh, you're the expert of problem solving. We're going to teach everybody how to problem solve, and we're going to sit in this classroom and we're going to do it. Okay, well, we have this knowledge, so we might have an idea of kind of like what I'm supposed to do, but because the other way is very ingrained and it's very supported by the culture, by the questions that your boss will ask you. Like, I've been in a lot of meetings where it's like, all right, we're behind schedule. Okay, how are you going to get back up? In an update meeting, that's exactly what should happen. But the problem is that I need to come up with a solution right there without first understanding why we're behind. It might be a systems problem, it might be a customer problem, it might be, we didn't work on it problem. Like, there are many reasons why you're behind schedule, and some of them are need to be addressed differently. When the only way that we support problem solving is to say, well, what are you going to do to make it better in that instant meeting? Then now we've undone that problem solving training. We've said, well, you don't have time for that right now. That's like when you have a little bit longer runway. So you're going to do it the way you've always done it, which is just jump to a solution, tell the customer something, expedite work overtime, and band-aid it. And, when it hits again, we'll do it again. So we have to be mindful of how we are behaving at all times. And if we want to break the cycle, we have to break our behaviors. So I think I've talked about this before, but there's psychological process of how we work. So our thoughts, or these belief systems, or these programs that we've lived in, so these environments we've lived in, create our thoughts. So our thoughts drive how we feel. And that's our emotions. That's our, I feel nervous, I feel anxious, I feel good, I feel happy, I feel excited. Whatever that feeling is going to drive how we behave. So those actions we take. And those actions we take are going to directly impact the result that we have. And then whatever result we get is either going to reinforce the thought we had or make us start to question and say, well, maybe that's not the right answer. So what we do when we throw everybody in a classroom and we train them about something, but then we don't actually change how we behave everywhere else, what we do is we try to change a behavior, which gives us kind of a knowledge base, but it doesn't go back to that thought. So what do we do when we're in a stressful situation? We go back to the original thought, the thing we know, the thing we're good at, and the thing we've practiced hundreds, thousands of times before, because that is how we are going to address it. We develop these thoughts or these programs, as they're called, very early in life. So over half of them are derived before we turn 5. So we've got the programs we've been taught as children. We've got the programs we've learned through, our growing up family, programs we've learned through going to school, programs we've learned through all of our work environments, whatever they may be, our personal relationships, our work relationships. So we're going to go back to the thing we know the most. So if we want to make a real change, if we want to break the cycle and make a real change in our culture, make a real change in the environment that we're working in, real change in the results, we have to go back to the thinking. So how do you do that? Ultimately, it has to start at the top. It has to start with leaders, because they're the ones who continue to perpetuate the cycle that they've got, or they can act differently. So instead of saying, how are you going to get back on track? And maybe say, what have you found to be in the way? So ask about the barrier first, and then say, now what are you going to do about it? Or what have you decided to do about it? And if they haven't figured out the actual barriers yet, then you can say, well, you need to go away and figure out what's getting in the way. What's the problem? Find the root cause and come back to me. And then we can brainstorm solutions, or come back to me once you've found the root cause. We know it's the root cause, and then we can have the solution. Upholding that behavior and upholding that is critical when we want to have real solutions to these problems. And we uphold our culture, and we uphold the behaviors that we want our people to have in every single interaction. Whether it's like the customer is yelling at you and down your throat and you're trying to expedite, you've got to uphold the same standards as when you have all the time in the world and you're doing everything exactly right. So you've got to uphold your standards in both situations. And when you don't, that's when you continue to perpetuate the bad culture that you don't want. So how does this look? So thinking through the fact that we learn through exposure and environment, then when we're training ourselves, and when we're training our leadership team, and when we're training our team in general, we need to put them in an environment where we're going to think differently and teach them how to think differently. So that can be one-on-one coaching. That can be a learning program that is very behavior based, that talks about these thoughts, that talks about these ways to make changes and to really think and get back to the thoughts that you have, to the thoughts that your team member has, to the thoughts that the team has, and really get back to that and either break them down and understand that that is not the way we want to behave, and this is what we change, or reinforce the ones that we want and say, yes, that is exactly how we want to behave. But until you do that, you're going to continue to get that repeated trickled down culture from one generation to the next. And so that is a workplace culture that will do that. Our family cultures will do that. And it will just continue to perpetuate. So again, if we're happy, wonderful. That is exactly what we want to be doing. If we're not happy with what we're getting, then let's do something different. So the good news is there are programs out there. There is help out there for that. Personally, am kicking off May 1st, my next cohort of Thrive. So that is perfect for if you've got like a small team and you need to send like 1 or 2 people, or you're the leader. This is ideal, really. If you're the leader and you want to figure out how to start doing this differently. What you get is a very supportive environment. So you get supported by me as your coach. You get supported by the team that you're learning with, and you develop these relationships where you're actually thinking through your problems. You get to bring your real life problems in and brainstorm with that group of people to say, how would I do that? And then you're supported with the learning information that you have. And now you're saying, oh, I've never thought to do it that way before. And then we get back to, okay, how are you going to put that into practice? How are you going to make that your automatic thought? So we go back and we teach habits, and we teach you to think differently so that you can behave differently and get the results that you want. So this is a 6-month program, and it's, we take you through the specific stages. Now let's say, okay, you can't make it, you can't work that out. So, or you've got a more focused thing I need to attack. One-on-one coaching, that is the way to go, because if you've got something that you're focused on that you really need help with, having that regular, hey, I need to be, what's the words I'm looking for? Having that regular support of changing your thinking, having that regular time where you're talking through goals and you're able to get back to what those thoughts are, those initial thoughts that are why you behave a certain way. Like, let's say you struggle to give feedback to people. You're supposed to, you've got the scripts, you've got all the things that you need, and you know exactly what you need to address, but for whatever reason, you don't do it. That's because you have a thought that gets in the way. You have some association that you've made, or a story you're telling yourself that is associated to that action. And it's making you feel nervous. It's making you feel like, oh, it's going to be a fight. Oh, it's going to go badly. Oh, whatever that might be. You've got a story you're telling yourself and you're avoiding that feeling. And you'll never change unless you teach yourself to unthink that thought and to rethink the other thoughts. So I hope you found today's episode helpful, insightful. I want to hear your thoughts about it, because maybe this is something you've heard before. Maybe this is new. Maybe this feels hard. I want to hear how you're feeling. So throw some comments down in the YouTube video. Send me an email, shoot me a DM on LinkedIn or Instagram. All the links for all of that are in the show notes. Reach out on my website, whatever method works for you. I want to hear what you're thinking about this, because if we really want to make a change in the world, in our workplaces, in our families, we need to be willing to do the work and to go back to the roots so that we can break the cycle. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode. And if you did, leave a review, share it with a friend, subscribe to either the podcast or the YouTube channel, whatever one you prefer. And I will see you on the next episode of the Business Building Blocks podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Business Building Blocks podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. If you found value in our conversation, please leave a quick review, like, or share. It helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. For more resources and insights, visit KristinaSchmitt.ca, where you can find tools and support to empower your leadership journey. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.